What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's Cybersecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I have broken the stories down in the timeline, and there is a list of the stories with time markers in the description below. So you can click around to any of those time markers to jump around to a story that you're interested in. If you find my work valuable, of course, I ask you to hit the like button and share this episode with anyone you know who can benefit from this information. And lastly, if you've not already, please also consider subscribing to my channel.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
We start off today with patches. WhatsApp has published 3 security advisories from 2022, 2 of which are related to CVE 2021-24042 and CVE 2021-24043, vulnerabilities discovered in January and February, and the third one is related to CVE 2022-36934 and CVE 2022-27492, fixed by the company in September. The CVE 2022-36934 CVS score of 9.8 flaw is an integer overflow in the app for Android that impacts versions prior to 2.22.16.12, business for Android prior to 2.22.16.12, iOS prior to 2.22.16.12, business for iOS prior to 2.22.16.12, and attacker can exploit the flaw to achieve remote code execution in an established video call. This RCE bug affects a piece of code in the WhatsApp component video call handler, which allows an attacker to manipulate the bug to trigger a heap-based buffer overflow and take complete control of WhatsApp Messenger, reads a post published by Malwarebytes. The CVE 2022-27492 CVS score of 7.8 is an integer underflow in WhatsApp for Android. It impacts versions prior to 2.22.16.2, WhatsApp for iOS 2.22.15.9. An attacker can gain remote code execution by sending to the victims a crafted video file. This RCE bug affects an unspecified code block of the component video file handler. The manipulation with an unknown input leads to a memory corruption vulnerability. To exploit this vulnerability, attackers would have to drop a crafted video file on the user's WhatsApp Messenger and convince the user to play it, says Malwarebytes. The Internet Systems Consortium this week released security patches to address 6 remotely exploitable vulnerabilities in BIND DNS software. 4 out of 6 flaws, all denial of service issues, have been rated as high severity. One of the issues tracked to CVE 2022-2906 with a CVS score of 7.5 is a memory leak in code handling Diffie-Hellman key exchange via TKeyRR's OpenSSL 3.00 plus only. Another flaw tracked to CVE 2022-38177 is a memory leak in ECDSA DNSSEC verification code. An attacker can trigger the vulnerability through a signature length mismatch. A third issue tracked to CVE 2022-3080 may cause the crash of the bind 9 resolver under certain conditions when specially crafted queries are sent to the resolver. Bind 9 resolver can crash when stale cache and stale answers are enabled. Option stale answer client timeout is set to 0, and there is a stale CNAME in the cache for an incoming query. Impact is by sending specific queries to the resolver, an attacker can cause named crash, reads the advisory. We now move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. Microsoft confirmed that 2 zero-day vulnerabilities in Microsoft Exchange recently disclosed by the researchers at cybersecurity firm GTSC are being actively exploited in the wild. The IT giant has promptly started the investigation into the 2 zero-day vulnerabilities that impacts Microsoft Exchange Server 2013, 2016, and 2019. The first flaw, tracked to CVE 2022-41040, is a server-side request forgery issue. The second vulnerability, tracked to CVE 2022-41082, allows remote code execution when PowerShell is accessible to the attacker. At this time, Microsoft is aware of limited targeted attacks using the 2 vulnerabilities to get into users' systems. In these attacks, CVE 2022-41040 can enable an authenticated attacker to remotely trigger CVE 2022-41082. It should be noted that authenticated access to the vulnerable Exchange server is necessary to successfully exploit either of the 2 vulnerabilities, reads the advisory published by Microsoft. Microsoft announced that it is working to accelerate the timeline to release a fix that addresses both issues Meantime, the company provided the mitigations and detection guidance to help customers protect themselves from these attacks. Microsoft states that Microsoft Exchange Online customers do not need to take any action, while it provided mitigation for on-premises Microsoft Exchange customers, which are the same shared by GTSC. We are working on an accelerated timeline to release a fix. Until then, we're providing the mitigations and detections guidance to help customers protect themselves from these attacks, Microsoft added. According to Vietnamese cybersecurity outfit GTSC, who first reported the ongoing attacks, the 0 days are chained to deploy Chinese chopper web shells for persistence and data theft, and to move laterally through the victims' networks. GTSC also suspects that a Chinese threat group might be responsible for the ongoing attacks based on the web shells code page, a Microsoft character encoding for simplified Chinese. The threat group also manages the web shells with the Ants Word Chinese open source website admin tool, as revealed by the user agent used to install them on compromised servers. GTSC recommends adding a rule to block requests with indicators of attacks through the URL rewrite rule module on IIS server. The current mitigation is to add a blocking rule in IIS Manager default website auto-discover URL rewrite actions to block the known attack patterns. A recently discovered malware builder called Quantum Builder is being used to deliver the Agent Tesla remote access Trojan Zscaler Threat Labs researchers warn. Quantum Builder, aka Quantum Link Builder, is used to create malicious shortcut files. It has been linked to the Lazarus Group app due to shared TTPs and source code overlaps, but we cannot confidently attribute this campaign to any specific threat actor, reads a report published by Zscaler. In this campaign, threat actors use Quantum Builder to generate malicious link, HTA, and PowerShell payloads, which then deliver Agent Tesla on the targeted machines. The Quantum Builder allows to create malicious shortcut files. It is sold on the dark web. The Quantum Builder also allows to generate malicious HTA, ISO, and PowerShell payloads that are used to drop the next stage malware. In the campaign observed by the experts, threat actors used the builder to generate malicious link, HTA, and PowerShell payloads, which is used to deliver Agent Tesla on the target machines. Experts noticed that this campaign features enhancements and a shift toward link window shortcut files when compared to past attacks. The attack chain observed by Zscaler starts with a spear phishing email, which consists of a link file bundled as a gzip archive. The messages are masqueraded as order confirmation message from a Chinese supplier of lump and rock sugar, with the link file concealed as a PDF document. So if you're in the market for lump and rock sugar, you keep an eye out. The HTA file then decrypts a PowerShell loader script, which decrypts and loads another PowerShell script after performing AES decryption and gzip decompression. The decrypted PowerShell script is the downloader PS script, which downloads and executes the Agent Tesla binary from a remote server. The malware is executed with administrative privileges by performing a UAC bypass using CMSTP. In a second variant of the infection sequence, the gzip archive is replaced by a zip file, which, while also adopting further obfuscation strategies to camouflage the malicious activity. Quantum Builder has witnessed a surge in usage in recent months, with threat actors using it to distribute a variety of malware such as Redline Stealer, Iced ID, GU Loader, Remco's Rat, and Async Rat. Threat actors are continuously evolving their tactics and making use of malware builders sold on the cybercrime marketplace. This Agent Tesla campaign is the latest in a string of attacks in which Quantum Builder has been used to create malicious payloads and campaigns against various organizations, concludes the report. It incorporates sophisticated techniques to evade detections, and the techniques are updated regularly by the developers. The Russia-linked apt28 employed a technique relying on mouse movement in decoy Microsoft PowerPoint documents to deploy malware, researchers from Cluster 25 reported. Cluster 25 researchers were analyzing a Lure PowerPoint document used to deliver a variant of Graphite malware, which is known to be used exclusively by the apt28 group, that starts the attack chain when the user starts the presentation mode and moves the mouse. The user action starts the execution of a PowerShell script designed to download and run a dropper from OneDrive. The code execution runs a PowerShell script that downloads and executes a dropper from OneDrive. The latter downloads a payload that extracts and injects it in itself a new portable executable file that the analysis showed to be a variant of a malware family known as Graphite that uses the Microsoft Graph API, hence named Graphite, and OneDrive for command and control communications, reads the analysis published by Cluster 25. The Lure document used a template potentially linked to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. It contains 2 slides, written in English and French respectively, with the same content. The dropper appears as a file with a JPEG extension, dsc0002.jpg. It is a DLL file that is later decrypted and written to C program data IMAP i2.dll. The last stage malware is a version of Graphite. It communicates with the command and control service through the domain graph.microsoft.com, i.e. abusing the Microsoft Graph service, and OneDrive. The Graphite is a fileless malware that is deployed in memory only and is used by threat actors to deliver post-exploitation frameworks like Empire. The analysis of metadata revealed that the nation-state actors employed them in a campaign between January and February 2022. However, the researchers noticed that the URLs using the attacks appeared still active in August and September, a circumstance that suggests the campaign is still ongoing. Potential targets of the campaign are organizations and individuals operating in the defense and government sectors of countries in Europe and Eastern Europe. So if you happen to be watching and you're from Europe and Eastern Europe and happen to work in the defense and government sectors, keep an eye out. Such recent evidence could suggest some sort of activity still ongoing linked to the described threat or to some of its variants. Finally, based on several indicators, geopolitical objectives, and the analyzed artifacts, Cluster 25 attributes this campaign to the Russia-linked threat actor known as App28, aka Fancy Bear, TSAR team, Pawn Storm, and Sednit. That's not Porn Storm, that's Pawn Storm. And indicates entities and individuals operating in the defense and government sectors of Europe and Eastern Europe countries as potential targets, concludes the report. The Bloody Ransomware Gang is the first group that started using the recently leaked LockBit ransomware builder in attacks in the wild. Last week, an alleged disgruntled developer leaked the builder for the latest encryptor of the LockBit ransomware gang. The latest version of the encryptor, version 3.0, was released by the gang in June. According to the gang, LockBit 3.0 has important novelties such as a bug bounty program, Zcash payment, and new extortion tactics. You've heard me say this numerous times in numerous episodes. The gang has been active since at least 2019, and today it is one of the most active ransomware gangs. The builder is contained in a password-protected 7z archive, lockbit3builder.7z, containing build.bat, builder.exe, config.json, and keygen.exe. The availability of the builder could allow any threat actor to create its own version of the ransomware, customizing it by modifying the configuration file. The Bloody Ransomware group started using the LockBit 3.0 builder to create its own ransomware. Early this week, the researcher Vladislav Radetsky reported the discovery of a new Bloody Ransomware gang encryptor that was employed in an attack on a Ukrainian organization. The researchers did not immediately identify the ransomware involved in the attack. It appeared as Conti or LockBit. Malware Hunter team researchers confirmed that the encryptor used in the attack by the Bloody Ransomware group was built using the leaked LockBit 3.0 builder. North Korea-linked Lazarus apt group continues to target macOS and a malware campaign using job opportunities as a lure. The attackers aimed at stealing credentials from the victims or for the victims' wallets. Last week, Sentinel-1 researchers discovered a decoy document advertising positions for a popular cryptocurrency exchange, Crypto.com. The Sentinel-1 investigation is based on a previous one conducted by ESET in August, when Lazarus apt has been observed targeting job seekers with macOS malware, working also on Intel and M1 chipsets. ESET published a series of tweets detailing the attacks. The experts spotted a signed Mac executable disguised as a job description for Coinbase. Malicious code was uploaded to VirusTotal from Brazil on August 11, 2022. Lazarus apt has used this kind of lure in multiple campaigns since at least 2020, including a campaign dubbed Operation Dream Job. The researchers have no evidence on how the malware is being distributed, but earlier reports on Operation Interception suggested that the threat actors initially established a contact with the victims via targeted messaging on LinkedIn. The first stage dropper employed in the latest campaign is a Mac-O binary that is a similar template to the Safari fonts agent binary used in the Coinbase attacks. The dropper launches the decoy PDF file, a 26-page document containing all vacancies on Crypto.com, and wipes the terminal's current saved state, com.applo.terminal.saved state. The second stage in the Crypto.com variant is a bare-bones application bundle named Wi-Fi Analytics Serve.app. It mirrors the same architecture employed in the Coinbase campaign. The second stage malware extracts and executes the third stage binary. The main purpose of the second stage is to extract and execute the third stage binary, Wi-Fi Analytics Agent. This functions as a downloader from a command and control server. The Coinbase variant used the domain concretcapital.com, reads the analysis published by SentinelOne. In the crypto.com sample, this was changed to market.contradacapital.com. The experts were not able to determine the last stage payload because the command and control server responsible for hosting the malware was offline at the time of the analysis. Experts pointed out that the threat actors have made no efforts to encrypt or obfuscate the binaries employed in the attacks, a circumstance that indicates the attackers were conducting short-term campaigns and or little fear of detection by their targets. The Lazarus, aka NukesPed threat actor, continues to target individuals involved in cryptocurrency exchanges. This has been a long-running theme going as far back as the Apple Juice campaigns that began in 2018. Operation Interception appears to be extending the targets from users of crypto exchange platforms to their employees in what may be a combined effort to conduct both espionage and cryptocurrency theft. Threat actors behind the new Erbium information stealing malware are distributing it as fake cracks and cheats for popular video games to steal victims' credentials and cryptocurrency wallets. So for all of you gamers out there, getting cheats is only going to get you hacked. The Erbium info stealing malware was first spotted by researchers at threat intelligence firm Cluster 25 on July 21st, 2022. The malware as a service was advertised on a Darkweb forum by a Russian-speaking threat actor. I mean, if he's writing, I don't know why you're saying he's Russian speaking, but whatever. Recently, Cyber's research team detected a new sample of Erbium stealer in the wild. We observed one of the recent gaming campaigns where the threat actors lure gamers and players who want to acquire an unfair or prohibited edge over other players with a malicious binary posted on Mediafire, which is a free service for file hosting, in case you didn't know. State Cypherma. Threat actors are spreading this malware using drive-by download techniques and pretending as cracked software game hacks. Experts at Cypherma recently analyzed a new sample of Erbium stealer in the wild, targeting gamers and players. Threat actors were offering to the gamers malicious binaries masquerading as software that can give them a prohibited edge over other players. Initially, the malware was sold at a price ranging from between $9 to $150, depending on the subscription plan that goes from 1 week to 1 year of license. Starting from July, the authors significantly increased the price, which ranges from $100 up to $1,000 for a 1-year subscription and access to a control panel. Erbium is an info stealer, capable of strongly impacting the confidentiality and integrity of the data and information contained in the systems it affects, and is an example of how the panorama of malicious tools is consistently evolving, offering proposals that are increasingly within reach of all in consideration of the low selling prices, says Emmanuel De Lucia, Director of Cyber Intelligence Presso Cluster 25. The main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of the Ukraine, HERMO, warns that Russia is planning to escalate cyber attacks targeting the critical infrastructure of Ukraine and Western countries. According to the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Service, the attacks will aim at disrupting operations at critical infrastructure, including electric grids and facilities of the energy industry. The Kremlin is planning to carry out massive cyber attacks on the critical infrastructure facilities of the Ukrainian enterprises and critical infrastructure institutions of Ukraine's allies. Attacks will be aimed at energy sector enterprises. The experience of cyber attacks on Ukraine's energy systems in 2015 and 2016 will be used when conducting operations, reads a report published on Facebook. The report also states that the cyber attacks will aim at interfering with the capabilities of the Ukrainian army and supporting the military offensive of the Russian army. The Kremlin also plans to conduct more powerful DDoS attacks on the critical infrastructure of the Ukraine's allies, such as Poland and the Baltic countries. With this, the enemy will try to increase the effect of missile strikes on electricity supply facilities, primarily in the eastern and southern regions of the Ukraine. The occupying command is convinced that this will slow down the offensive actions of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, reads the alert issued by the HERMO. The Kremlin also intends to increase the intensity of DDoS attacks on the critical infrastructure of Ukraine's closest allies, primarily Poland and the Baltic states. U.S. President Joe Biden warned in July 2021 that cyber attacks leading to severe security breaches could trigger a real shooting war. This statement was issued a month after NATO said that cyber attacks could be compared to armed attacks in some circumstances. A China-linked cyber espionage group tracked as TA413, aka Lucky Cat, is exploiting recently disclosed flaws in Sophos Firewall CVE 2022-1040 and Microsoft Office CVE 2022-30190 to deploy a never-before-detected backdoor called Low Zero in attacks aimed at Tibetan entities. Why do you want to mess with Tibet? The TA413 apt group is known to be focused on Tibetan organizations across the world. In past attacks, threat actors used a malicious Firefox add-on dubbed FriarFox to steal Gmail and Firefox browser data and deliver malware on affected systems. In June, the TA413 group has been observed exploiting the Folina zero-day flaw tracked as CVE 2022-30190 and rated with a CVS score of 7.8 in Microsoft Office and attacks in the wild. The attackers use Royal Road RTF Builder to create weaponized documents that exploits the above flaws to deliver low-zero malware. Experts notice that the threat actors have regularly reused phishing email sender addresses for up to several years, a circumstance that allowed the researchers to connect multiple campaigns to the group's activity. In May 2022, the experts uncovered a spear phishing campaign targeting a Tibetan organization containing a link to a Royal Road sample hosted on the Google Firebase service. The RTF document was crafted to exploit the Folina vulnerability to execute a PowerShell command and download the backdoor from a remote server. Also put to use in a spear phishing attack identified in May 2022 is a malicious RTF document that exploited flaws in Microsoft Equation Editor to drop the custom low-zero implant. This is achieved by employing a Royal Road RTF weaponizer tool, which is widely shared among Chinese threat actors. The group continues to incorporate new capabilities while also relying on tried and tested TTPs, concludes the report. More widely, TA413's adoption of both zero-day and recently published vulnerabilities is indicative of wider trends with Chinese cyber espionage groups, whereby exploits regularly appear in use by multiple distinct Chinese activity groups prior to their widespread public availability. Mandiant detailed a novel technique used by malware authors to achieve administrative access within VMware ESXi Hypervisors and take over vCenter servers and virtual machines for Windows and Linux to perform the following actions. Send commands to the hypervisor that will be routed to the guest VM for execution. Transfer files between ESXi Hypervisor and guest machines running beneath it. Tamper with logging services on the hypervisor. Execute arbitrary commands from one guest VM to another guest VM running on the same hypervisor. This malware ecosystem was initially detected during an intrusion investigation when Mandiant identified attacker commands sourced from the legitimate VMware tools process, vmtools.d.exe, on a Windows virtual machine hosted on a VMware ESXi hypervisor, reads the report published by Mandiant. Mandiant analyzed the boot profile for the ESXi hypervisor and identified a never-before-seen technique in which a threat actor leveraged malicious vSphere installation bundles, or VIBs, to install multiple backdoors on the ESXi hypervisors. We call these backdoors Virtual PITA and Virtual Pi. The experts pointed out that the attacker needs admin-level privileges to the ESXi hypervisor before they can deploy the malware. The experts are not aware of the zero-day exploits being used to gain initial access to or deploy the malicious VIBs. Mandiant researchers discovered that attackers were able to modify the acceptance level in the XML descriptor of the VBI from community to partner to make it appear to have been created by a trusted entity. While the acceptance level field was modified in the description XML by the attacker, the ESXi system still did not allow for a falsified VIB file to be installed below the minimal set acceptance level. To circumvent this, the attacker abused the force flag to install malicious community-supported VIBs, continues the report. Virtual PITA is a 64-bit passive backdoor that creates a listener on a hard-coded port number on a VMware ESXi server. The malware supports arbitrary command execution. Virtual Pi is a lightweight Python backdoor that supports arbitrary command line execution, file transfer capabilities, and reverse shell capabilities. Researchers also discovered a unique malware sample tracked as Virtual Gate, which includes a dropper and a payload. The malicious code was hosted by the infected hypervisors. While we noted the technique used by UNC 3886 requires a deeper level of understanding of the ESXi operating system and VMware's virtualization platform, we anticipate a variety of other threat actors will use the information outlined in this research to begin building out similar capabilities, concludes the report. Mandiant recommends organizations using ESXi and the VMware infrastructure suite follow the hardening steps outlined in their blog post to minimize the attack surface of ESXi hosts. Checkpoint researchers, CPR, observed multiple hacker groups using Telegram, Signal, and Darkweb to support protesters in Iran in bypassing regime censorship. The attackers are sharing tools and tips to bypass censorship, including opening VPN servers to avoid restrictions introduced in the country following the death of Mahsa Amini. The hacktivists used the above channels to leak sensitive data, including officials' phone numbers and emails and maps of sensitive locations. Checkpoint researchers also reported that there are some hacking groups that are trying to make a profit from the situation and to sell information from Iran and the regime. Multiple groups were observed providing a list of proxies and VPN that helped to bypass the censorship, along with reports on the internet status in Iran. One of the most popular Telegram channels supporting protesters is called Official Atlas Intelligence Group, or AIG. It has 900 members and primarily focuses on publishing data associated with government officials as well as maps of sensitive locations. Another Telegram group called Arvin, with more than 5,000 members, focuses on news from the protests in Iran, reporting videos and images from the streets where the protests are. Signal also decided to provide support to the protests in Iran, helping other people to set up proxy servers that can be used to bypass the censorship in Iran. What we see are groups from Telegram, Darkweb, and on the regular internet helping the protesters to bypass the restrictions and censorship that are currently in place by the Iranian regime to suppress the protests. Concludes Checkpoint. We began seeing these groups emerge roughly a day after the protests began. These groups allow people in Iran to communicate with each other, share news, and what is going on in different places. Threat actors have cracked the Brute Ratel C4 BRC4 post-exploitation toolkit and leaked it for free in the cybercrime underground. The availability of the cracked version of the tool was first reported by the cybersecurity researcher Will Thomas. Unlike Cobalt Strike beacons, BRC4 payloads are less popular, but with similar capabilities. The tool was specifically designed to avoid detection by security solutions such as endpoint detection and response and antivirus. Its effectiveness at doing so can clearly be witnessed by the aforementioned lack of detection across vendors on VirusTotal. In June, researchers from Palo Alto Networks Unit 42 warned that threat actors are abusing legitimate advisory simulation software BRC4 in their campaigns to evade detection. In July 2022, Sophos investigated an incident involving the use of the Brute Ratel tool in the wild alongside Cobalt Strike that was carried out by Alpha Black Cat ransomware gang. Thomas is warning that a cracked copy of the Brute Ratel is now circulating on multiple underground forums. On September 13, 2022, an archive file called Brute Ratel 1.2.2 Scandinavian Defense Tar.gz was uploaded to VirusTotal. This file contains a valid copy of BRC4 version 1.2.2/5. 2 weeks later, on September 28th, the author of BRC4, Shetan Nayak, confirmed the leak of the tool by MDSec. He blamed a Russian-speaking group known as Molecules for the leak of the cracked copy. This means that with the right instructions, the cracked tool can now be run without the activation key that is required to launch the full software and use its features, wrote Thomas. There are now multiple posts on multiples of the most populated cybercrime forums where data brokers, malware developers, initial access brokers, and ransomware affiliates are hang out. This includes breach forums, CryptBB, Ramp, Exploit.in, and XSSIS, as well as various Telegram and Discord groups. Threat actors connected to various organized cybercrime groups have expressed interest in the leak of the new tool. Searching for active threads on hacking forums like XSS, it is already possible to find the cracked version of the Brute Ratel C4 version 1.2.2. The availability of the tool in the wild is very concerning because the post-exploitation tool can generate shellcode that is undetected by many EDR and AV products. This extended window of detection evasion can give threat actors enough time to establish initial access, begin lateral movement, and achieve persistence elsewhere. Due to its evasive generation of new payloads, it renders stopping Brute Ratel by the traditional blocking of indicators of compromise inadequate. It is recommended that defenders use behavior-based detection opportunities to thwart attacks, like the ones outlined in an MDSec's blog, concludes Thomas. Overall, enterprises and public sector organizations must recognize the imminent threat of the proliferation of this tool. Its capabilities closely align with the objectives of ransomware groups that are already highly active and looking for new windows of opportunity. Researchers from Black Lotus Labs at Lumen Technologies recently uncovered a multifunctional Go-based malware that was delivered to target devices based on multiple architectures, including Windows and Linux. The malicious code was developed to target a broad range of devices, including small office, home office, routers, and enterprise servers. The Chaos malware includes capabilities previously documented in the original KG Linux botnet. The experts analyzed roughly 100 samples of the Chaos malware, which was written in Chinese and relies on a China-based command and control infrastructure. Chaos functionality includes the ability to enumerate the host environment, run remote shell commands, load additional modules, automatically propagate through stealing and brute force SSH, private keys, as well as launch DDoS attacks, reads the analysis published by Lumen Technologies. The experts were able to enumerate this command and control servers and targets of multiple distinct Chaos clusters, some of which were employed in recent DDoS attacks against the gaming, financial services and technology, and media and entertainment industries. Researchers warn that despite the botnet infrastructure today is comparatively smaller than some of the leading DDoS malware families, Chaos is rapidly growing. Given the suitability of the Chaos malware to operate across a range of consumer and enterprise devices, its multi-purpose functionality, and the stealth profile of the network infrastructure behind it, we assess this with moderate confidence. This activity is the work of a cybercriminal actor that is cultivating a network of infected devices to leverage for initial access, DDoS attacks, and crypto mining, continues the report. The analysis of the infections from mid-June to mid-July 2022 revealed that most of the bots are located in Europe, specifically Italy. Other infections were observed in North and South America and Asia Pacific. The Chaos malware supports more than 70 different commands, including executing propagation through the exploitation of predetermined CVEs, launching DDoS attacks, or starting crypto mining. Some samples analyzed by the experts were able to exploit the CVE 2017-17215 and CVE 2022 30525, respectively, impacting Huawei and Zyxel devices. While the shift to Go-based malware has been underway for the last few years, there are a few strains that demonstrate the breadth of Chaos in terms of the wide array of architectures and operating systems it has designed to infect. Not only does it target enterprise and large organizations, but also devices and systems that aren't routinely monitored as part of an enterprise security model, such as SOHO routers and FreeBSD OSs, concludes the report. And with a significant evolution from its predecessor, Chaos is achieving rapid growth since the first documented evidence of it in the wild. Disinformation undermines true journalism and steers the public opinion in highly charged topics such as immigration, climate change, armed conflicts, and refugee and health crises. Social media platforms are the battlefield of disinformation. The war in Ukraine is, of course, no exception. This investigation presents how a large disinformation campaign targeting European audience with pro-Russian propaganda was active in social media for months. What started as an investigation of media clones of the German Der Spiegel, Bild, and T-Online turned out to be a fascinating dive into the multimedia world of disinformation production. Tracing the infrastructure of a few websites helped to discover dozens of websites spreading Russian propaganda related to the war in Ukraine. The campaign undermined the Ukraine government, its citizens, and Western governments supporting Ukraine and supported the lift of sanctions against Russia. Curium's infrastructure research does not only show how European infrastructure has been used to host the fake news sites, but also how new domains have been registered to keep the campaign running in the very same physical servers. Curium's investigation is the result of a collaboration with the EU Disinfo Lab, an independent nonprofit organization focused on tackling sophisticated disinformation campaigns targeting the EU. Curium has focused on the technical aspects of the campaign. Meta announced to have taken down a huge Russian network of Facebook and Instagram accounts used to spread disinformation published on more than 60 websites impersonating news organizations across Europe. Sounds like we just talked about this story, right? The disinformation operation began in May 2022. The network targeted primarily Germany, France, Italy, Ukraine, and the UK. It was spreading fake content related to the war in Ukraine and its impact in Europe. Meta pointed out that this is the largest and most complex Russian operation they've disrupted since the war in the Ukraine began. We took down a large network that originated in Russia and targeted primarily Germany, and also France, Italy, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom. The operation began in May of this year and centered around a sprawling network of over 60 websites, carefully impersonating legitimate news organizations in Europe, including Spiegel, Guardian, Bild, and ANSA, reads the report published by Meta. Threat actors behind this operation promoted the articles and also original memes and YouTube videos across many internet services, including Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, Twitter, Petitious, websites, Change.org, and Avaz, and even LiveJournal. The amplification on social media, on the other hand, relied primarily on crude ads and fake accounts. In fact, on their platforms, the majority of the accounts, pages, and ads were detected and removed by their automated systems before they even began their investigation, or Facebook Meta began their investigation, continues the report. Together, these two approaches worked as an attempted smash and grab against the information environment rather than a serious effort to occupy it long term. Meta disrupted for the first time a Chinese network focused on the U.S. domestic politics. The Chinese origin influence operation also targeted the Czech Republic. It ran across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also 2 petition platforms in Czechia. Defense confirmed Elbit Systems of America discloses the data breach? Really? In late June, the Black Bastard ransomware gang claimed to have hacked Elbit Systems of America. The extortion group added the name of the company to its Tor leak site. Elbit Systems of America, LLC, is a U.S.-based wholly owned subsidiary of Elbit Systems Limited, a leading global source of innovation technology-based systems for diverse defense and commercial applications. Now the company has confirmed the data breach that took place on June 8, 2022 and impacted 369 people. The company discovered the security breach after noticing unusual activity on its network. In response to the intrusion, it shut down its systems to prevent the threat from spreading. Exposed data may have included individuals' names, addresses, social security numbers, dates of birth, direct deposit information, and ethnicity. The company already notified impacted individuals and it's offering them 12 months of free identity protection and credit monitoring services. Some of the documents published by the Black Bastard gang on its leak site as proof of the hack included an audit report, confidentiality agreements, and a payroll report. GitHub is warning of an ongoing phishing campaign targeting its users to steal credentials and two-factor authentication codes by impersonating the CircleCI DevOps platform. The company learned of the attacks against its users on September 16th. It pointed out that the phishing campaign has impacted many victim organizations, except GitHub. Clicking the link takes the user to a phishing site that looks like the GitHub login page, but steals any credentials entered. For users with TOTP-based two-factor authentication enabled, the phishing site also relays any TOTP codes to the threat actor and GitHub in real time, allowing the threat actor to break into accounts protected by TOTP-based two-factor authentication. Accounts protected by hardware security keys are not vulnerable to this attack, reads the advisory published by Microsoft-owned company. Recipients are redirected to the phishing pages, mimicking GitHub, login page designed to steal in real time the credentials and two-factor authentication code entered by the users. The company pointed out that the accounts protected by hardware security keys, again, are not vulnerable to this attack. Among the tactics used by the attackers, they may quickly create GitHub personal access tokens, authorized OAuth applications, or add SSH keys to the account in order to maintain access to the account in case the user changes their password. In other cases, the attackers were immediately downloading private repository contents accessible to the compromised user, including those owned by organization accounts and other collaborators. The attackers use VPN or proxy providers to download private repository data via compromised user accounts. The list of known phishing domains that were used as part of this campaign is circle-ci.com, emails-circle-ci.com, circle-cl, I guess it is, .com, and email-circle-ci.com. Security researchers have discovered a malicious campaign by the Wichita hacking group, which uses steganography to hide the backdoor malware in a Windows logo. Wichita is believed to have close ties to the state-backed Chinese threat actor Apt10, aka Cicada. The group is also considered part of the TA410 operatives previously linked to attacks against U.S. energy providers. Symantec reports that the threat group is operating a new cyber espionage campaign launched in February 2022 that targeted 2 governments in the Middle East and a stock exchange in Africa, and is still ongoing. In this campaign, the hackers refreshed their toolkit to target different vulnerabilities and used steganography to hide their malicious payload from antivirus software. Steganography is the act of hiding data within other non-secret public information or computer files such as an image to evade detection. For example, a hacker can create a working image file that displays correctly on the computer, but also includes malicious code that can be extracted from it. In the campaign discovered by Symantec, Wichita is using steganography to hide an XOR encrypted backdoor malware in an old Windows logo bitmap image. The file is hosted on a trusted cloud service instead of the threat actor's command and control server, so the chances of raising security alarms while fetching it are minimized. Disguising the payload in this fashion allowed the attackers to host it on a free, trusted service, Symantec explains in the report. Downloads from trusted hosts such as GitHub are far less likely to raise red flags than downloads from an attacker-controlled command and control server. The attack begins with the threat actors gaining initial access to a network by exploiting the Microsoft Exchange proxy shell CVE 2021-34473, CVE 2021-34523, and CVE 2021-31207, and proxy logon, which is CVE 2021-26855, and CVE 2021-27065, attack chains to drop web shells on vulnerable servers. Next, the threat actors fetch the backdoor hiding in the image file, which enables them to do the following: perform file and directory actions, start, enumerate, or kill processes, modify the Windows registry, download additional payloads, and exfiltrate files. Witchetty also introduced a custom proxy utility that causes the infected computer to act as the server and connects to the command and control server, acting as a client instead of the other way around. Other tools include a custom port scanner and a custom persistence utility that adds itself in the registry as NVIDIA Display Core component. TA410 and Witchetty remain active threats to governments and state organizations in Asia, Africa, and around the globe. The best way to prevent its attacks is to apply security updates as they are released. In the campaign discovered by Symantec, the hackers rely on exploiting last year's vulnerabilities to breach the target network, taking advantage of the poor administration of publicly exposed servers. Anonymous launched OpIran against Iran due to the ongoing crackdown and dissent after Mahsa Amini's death. The protest began after the death of Mahsa Amini from Saqqez in Kurdistan province after her arrest by Iran's morality police for allegedly wearing her hijab too loosely. The authorities claimed Amini died of natural causes after suffering heart failure while she was at the police station, but citizens don't believe this is the truth and moved the protests to the streets. Last week, network data from the Internet Observatory NetBlocks detailed a near total disruption to internet service in parts of Kurdistan in Iran from the evening of Monday, the 19th of September. During the week, the experts also observed the partial disruption to internet service in Tehran and other parts of the country, while the protests were fueling a heated discussion on Instagram and WhatsApp. Then the Iranian government shut down the mobile networks in the country. Anonymous declared war on the Iranian government and launched its #OpIran campaign against the government websites, including the ones belonging to the Iranian intelligence police. The group calls for action to launch DDoS attacks on Iranian websites, steal their data, and leak them online. Hacktivists also invite Iranian citizens to bypass state censorship by using the Tor browser 6, or the Tor browser. In the case of Russia, as reported by hackeread.com, Anonymous managed to hack over 400 security cameras across the country while sending almost 10 million texts to Russian citizens to raise awareness about the conflict. Anonymous has claimed to have hacked hundreds of security cameras in Iran. In one of the messages, members of the collective revealed to have exploited the CVE 2018-9999 vulnerability. Hey, we now move on to other security news. Mondiant researchers are tracking multiple self-proclaimed hacktivist groups working in support of Russia and identified 3 groups linked to the Russian Main Intelligence Directorate, or GRU. The experts assess with moderate confidence that moderators of the purported hacktivist Telegram channels ZakNet Team, InfoCenter, and Cyber Army of Russia Reborn are coordinating their operations under control of the GRU. The so-called hacktivist groups conducted distributed denial-of-service attacks and defacement attacks against Ukrainian websites, but the experts believe that they are a front for information operations and destructive cyber activities coordinated by the Kremlin. The experts discovered that some App28 tools were used to compromise the networks of Ukrainian victims, whose data was subsequently leaked on Telegram within 24 hours of wiping activity by App28. The App28 group, aka Fancy Bear, Pawn Storm, Sophacy Group, Sednit, and Strontium, has been active since at least 2007, and it has targeted governments, militias, or militaries, and security organizations worldwide. The group was involved also in the string of attacks that targeted 2016 presidential election in the United States. The group operates out of Military Unit 26165 of the Russian General Staff Main Intelligence Directorate, or GRU, 85th Main Special Services Center. Most of App28's campaigns leveraged spear phishing and malware-based attacks. Mondiant identified at least 16 data leaks from threat actors claiming to be hacktivists, 4 of which coincided with wiping attacks conducted by Russian-linked cyber espionage group App28. Mondiant has only observed the use of Cattywiper and ArguePatch by App28, although we note that others have publicly attributed some Cattywiper deployments to Sandworm, reads the report published by Mondiant. In 2 incidents, Mondiant observed App28 conduct wiper attacks, which were followed within 24 hours by data from the victims being leaked on Telegram. In both instances, App28 deployed ArguePatch, which dropped Cattywiper. Many researchers are not able to determine the composition of these groups and their exact degree of affiliation with Russian military intelligence. Experts believe that the moderators of the ZecNet team channel are directly supported by F-28. Based on ZecNet's leak of a technical artifact F-28 used in the compromise of a Ukrainian network, the unique nature of this technical artifact suggests that the moderators of ZecNet team either are GRU intelligence officers or work directly with the GRU F-28 operators. The cyber department of the Ukraine Security Service has taken down a group of hackers that is behind the theft of about 30 million individuals. What? Information? I guess theft of information about 30 million individuals? The gang was offering the stolen accounts for sale on the dark web. According to the SSU, they earned almost UAH, or I guess Ukrainian currency, 14 million for the sale. The gang was receiving money through electronic payment systems, U-Money, Kiwi, and WebMoney, which are prohibited in Ukraine. The cybercriminals harvested credentials and sensitive data through malware infection. It focused on systems in Ukraine and the European Union. Their wholesale customers were pro-Kremlin propagandists. It was they who used the received identification data of the Ukrainian and foreign citizens to spread fake news from the front and create panic. The goal of such manipulations was large-scale destabilization in countries, reads the press release from SSU. It was also established that hacked accounts were allegedly used on behalf of ordinary people to spread disinformation about the socio-political situation in Ukraine and the EU. The Brave browser will soon allow users to block annoying and potential privacy-harming cookie consent banners on all websites they visit. If you visited a website, you may have noticed an annoying cookie consent prompting asking you if you would like to accept data collecting cookies from advertisers. These notifications are incredibly annoying, but have become necessary to do business online to comply with data protection regulations like GDPR. In some cases, however, these banners can serve as trackers themselves, as they engage in a privacy-breaching data exchange before the user even has a chance to opt out. Secondly, it's widely accepted that the consent prompts severely disrupt the browsing experience, as users have to deal with them almost every time they visit a website. Brave will proactively detect and block the cookie consent banners to deal with both of these issues, removing both a distraction and a potential privacy risk for users. New versions of Brave will hide and, where possible, completely block cookie consent notifications, mentions Brave's blog post. Brave's approach is distinct and more privacy-preserving than similar systems used in other browsers, such as the auto-consent systems used in other browsers, and helps keep the web user first. Unlike other solutions such as browser extensions that auto-consent for a user or block prompts, Brave says they break the communication channel between the browser and the consent tracking system. The rollout of the new system has already started in Brave nightly and is scheduled to reach the stable branch on version 1.45 in October. Starting with Windows and Android. iOS will follow soon afterward. The new option will appear in the browser's settings in Shields, where users may tick the box for blocking obtrusive cookie notices. All users will get a prompt to set the new option upon launching Brave for the first time after the update that introduces the feature. Cookie banners highlight how much worse the web will get if Google and others succeed in weakening users' ability to block such annoyances, says Brave. I think everybody needs to be careful, especially in EU-based countries where GDPR is mandatory for for protection of users on websites. It could be that those countries ban Brave because Brave is basically breaking that communication. But whatever, we'll see. With that, I say thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you have not already, and smash the bell if you haven't already. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Don't forget to run!